power wears many masks, but none more disarming than kindness.
Imagine you are in a palace. The chandeliers drip with diamonds. The air is perfumed with lilies and honeyed wine. A man stands before you, his eyes humble, his hands empty, his voice soft. He offers no threat. He gives you a gift, something thoughtful, personal, sincere. You feel seen, but what you don't see is the blade beneath his robe. This is the paradox of power. When someone hurts you, you recoil, you prepare, you build your armor. But when someone praises you, flatters you, offers you something for nothing, your gates swing wide open. History is not moved by brute force alone. It is seduced. It is lulled. The most cunning manipulators don't shout. They whisper. They offer you the truth, just enough of it, to make you stop questioning the rest. In every kingdom, in every empire, in every home, the most dangerous dagger is the one that comes wrapped in velvet, wrapped in kindness, wrapped in something that feels pure. Selective honesty is not about being truthful. It's about appearing truthful. It is a strategy, a maneuver, a magician's misdirection. You show one card, so no one notices the dozen hidden in your sleeve. And generosity, it is the warm hand that distracts you from the cold intention. Think of the lovers who betray, the politicians who smile, the businessman who buys you dinner before devouring your market. Think of the priest who sins, the general who surrenders before crushing his enemy, the friend who waits 10 years to make their move. These people don't stab you in the dark. They disarm you in the light. One sincere and honest move will cover over dozens of dishonest ones. Robert Greene. Why? Because humans are not built for war. Not really. We are built for connection. We long for something real, even in the most unreal places. We crave sincerity. So when someone offers even a drop of it, we drink like it's truth. But that, right there, is the trap. The great manipulators know, if you want control over someone, give them a gift. If you want access, tell them the truth once. If you want power, make them believe you would never lie. The truly dangerous people don't appear dangerous. They appear generous, transparent, safe. They take a bullet for you, and later ask for your soul in return. History rewards those who smile with purpose. The emperor who cries before invading. The conqueror who sends peace offerings before burning cities. The advisor who reveals one painful secret to conceal 10 fatal ones. They understand. Power is not about force. It is about timing. It is about when to lie, when to be honest, and how to make your enemy beg for more. This law is not about cruelty. It's about precision. And in the hands of the right person, it is mercy. It is seduction. It is war. Trust me, they say, and so you do. But you should have asked, why did they offer it so freely? But what if a gift was the beginning of your undoing? There is something primal about honesty. When a person tells us the truth, especially a truth we don't expect, it hits like a wave of cold water. It stuns us. For a moment, we drop our guard. We think, if they were hiding something, they wouldn't have told me this. But that's the brilliance of selective honesty. It's not about telling the truth all the time. It's about when and how you tell it. Used precisely, a single honest admission can create a fog of credibility that lasts for years. This is what Robert Greene warns us about. In the 48 Laws of Power, Law 12 teaches us this: one sincere and honest move will cover over dozens of dishonest ones. That single move becomes a foundation, a reputation, a weapon. It's not about goodness. It's about strategy. Selective honesty is the art of revealing just enough to build trust, to shift suspicion away, to gain a foothold. The con artist tells you something painful about himself. The political player admits a mistake publicly. The enemy shows you mercy. These moments aren't mistakes. They are moves, and they often come just before the kill. And generosity, that's the other half of this deadly dance. To give something freely is to create a sense of obligation. It binds the receiver, not with chains, but with guilt, with gratitude, with the illusion of loyalty. The psychological term is reciprocity bias. We are wired to give back to those who give to us, whether they deserve it or not. And the manipulators know this. They exploit it. They give in order to take. Look closely at the timing. A gift given at the right moment, when tension is high, when you feel isolated, when suspicion is growing, it becomes not just kindness, but a rescue. And the rescuer becomes sacred. You begin to trust them blindly. You stop looking at their hands and focus only on their eyes. That's how the poison enters. The beauty of selective honesty and generosity is that it removes the need for pressure. It makes the victim volunteer their surrender. They open the door themselves. They pour the wine. They never suspect the toast was their own funeral. Examples are everywhere. The mafioso who pays for a wedding, the CEO who confesses a past mistake to gain sympathy during a scandal, the spy who gives one real secret to prove his loyalty while stealing a dozen more. These aren't accidents. They're scripts. Powerful people don't just manipulate, they orchestrate. And in this law, the performance is kindness. You must build a reputation for honesty based on a single dramatic act of honesty. Robert Greene. Why? Because drama creates memory, and memory becomes trust. One act of sacrifice can blind someone for years. And that's where the danger lies. We remember the one time they were kind. We forget the 100 times they were calculating. To master this law is to understand that trust is a currency, one you can forge. To protect yourself from this law is to understand that no gesture is ever truly free. If someone gives you something for nothing, ask yourself, what story are they writing? And what part are you playing in it? To see this law in motion, let us step into the smoke-filled rooms of 19th century Europe and meet a man who sold the Eiffel Tower twice. In the glittering streets of post-war Paris, where fortunes were made and lost in an afternoon, walked a man of elegance, tall, poised, always dressed in the finest tailored suits. He was a gentleman, a speaker of many languages, and he radiated charm like heat from a fire. His name was Victor Lustig, but he wasn't a diplomat. He wasn't a businessman. He was a con artist, the kind of man who didn't steal with violence, but with words and winks and the sharp edge of confidence. And he didn't just steal wallets. He stole reality. Lustig understood something most people don't. People believe what they want to believe, especially when it comes wrapped in official paper and spoken by someone who seems honest. In 1925, Lustig read an article in the newspaper. The Eiffel Tower was falling apart. The city couldn't afford to maintain it. And just like that, the seed of deception bloomed in his mind. He forged official documents, created fake government stationery, and then he invited 5 of the richest scrap metal dealers in Paris to a secret meeting at the Hôtel de Crillon. The setup was perfect. He told them the government had decided to sell the Eiffel Tower for scrap, but it had to remain secret to avoid public outrage. The men stared at him, stunned, intrigued, suspicious. And that's when Lustig made his master move. He leaned in, lowered his voice, and confessed that he wasn't just a middleman. He was a government official. And he was corrupt. He told them he expected a bribe, just a little something, to secure the deal. Now think, most con artists would try to appear clean, but Lustig knew better. He understood that selective dishonesty was far more powerful than pretending to be a saint. By admitting to a small lie, corruption, he made the rest of the con seem more real. Why would a real government official admit to bribery if he were faking it? That moment of selective honesty disarmed his victim. One of the dealers, André Poisson, desperate for wealth and status, took the bait. He paid the bribe. Then he paid for the tower. By the time he realized the truth, Lustig was gone, with a suitcase full of money. And the Eiffel Tower, of course, remained exactly where it had always been. But Lustig wasn't finished. Weeks later, he came back to Paris and tried the same con again, and nearly succeeded a second time. Why? Because people wanted to believe him. Because he didn't come in guns blazing. He came in with charm, elegance, humility, and just enough truth to lower their guard. This is the essence of Law 12. Lustig didn't lie outright. He offered a version of the truth, just corrupt enough to seem real. And by doing that, he shattered his victims' defenses. They let him in. They gave him power. He gave them what all marks want most, the illusion of being on the inside, of being trusted, of being chosen. The best con is the one where the victim thinks he's the thief. Anonymous. Lustig mastered that. He gave just enough truth to convince the powerful that they were manipulating him, that they were clever, ahead. And in doing so, he took everything. But not all deceptions are criminal. Some are political masterpieces cloaked in silk. Let us now enter the Prussian court, where a master of power played a very different game. In the 19th century, Europe was a chessboard soaked in blood and ambition. Empires rose and fell on the backs of treaties, betrayals, and war. But there was one man who knew how to conquer without marching, a tactician whose mind was sharper than any blade. Otto von Bismarck, the Iron Chancellor. He unified Germany not with violence alone, but with a cunning understanding of human weakness. And in his arsenal was a weapon few suspected: strategic generosity and selective honesty. Bismarck understood that in politics, raw aggression leads to resistance. But if you offer a hand, a gift, a concession, a gesture of peace, you make others lower their guard. You make them believe you're not the threat. And then, when the time is right, you strike. Let us examine one of his most subtle and brilliant moves: the orchestration of the war against France in 1870. The French Emperor, Napoleon III, was growing uneasy. The Spanish throne was vacant, and a distant cousin of the Prussian king was rumored to be a candidate. France feared encirclement. War seemed imminent. To calm the tension, Bismarck publicly supported peace. He released statements, offered reassurances, even approved a diplomatic visit between the French ambassador and King Wilhelm I. But behind the scenes, he prepared the trap. On July 13, 1870, King Wilhelm sent a polite telegram to Bismarck, summarizing his neutral conversation with the French ambassador. There was no insult, no aggression, just formality. But Bismarck saw an opportunity. He edited the telegram, sharpened it, shortened it, removed the nuance, and left only the skeleton of cold rejection. Then he leaked it to the press. What had been a polite exchange was now perceived as a grave insult, both to France and to Napoleon III's pride. Outraged, France declared war. And that's exactly what Bismarck wanted. Bismarck's genius wasn't just in the manipulation. It was in how he set the table beforehand. He made Prussia appear reasonable, transparent, even generous. He disarmed his opponents with diplomacy, and then maneuvered them into war on his terms. The edited telegram, known as the Ems dispatch, is a classic example of how selective honesty works. Bismarck didn't fabricate the event. He didn't invent a lie. He simply told part of the truth, in a way that burned everything else down. War is the continuation of politics by other means. Karl von Clausewitz. Bismarck understood this perfectly, but he also understood something deeper. Before war comes trust, and trust is what makes betrayal possible. In the aftermath, France lost. The German Empire was born, and Bismarck, the man who had acted so honorably, so honestly, was revealed to be a master of manipulation. But by then, it was too late. Even in his personal dealings, Bismarck used restraint, silence, and the occasional admission of fault to appear grounded. His gestures of humility were calculated. They made others believe they understood him, and that illusion was his shield. He disarmed Europe not with violence, but with precision. And sometimes, the honest man walks barefoot into the palace and never leaves. Let us now step into the haunted corridors of Tsarist Russia, where a monk with black eyes seduced an empire. He came from the cold, a peasant, a mystic, a wanderer wrapped in shadow. They called him monk, prophet, heretic, healer, devil. Grigori Rasputin, a man who walked barefoot into the halls of the Russian Empire and, without a crown, without an army, without a single drop of noble blood, bent the royal family to his will. How? Not through fear, but through selective honesty and carefully engineered generosity. To understand Rasputin's power, you must first understand Russia at the time. The empire was crumbling. The Tsar's rule was fragile, and in the palace, a secret was eating the Romanov family alive. Their only son, Alexei, heir to the throne, was dying, a hemophiliac. One cut could mean death, and the doctors were helpless. Enter Rasputin, a wild-eyed peasant mystic from Siberia, known for visions and healing hands. He was introduced to the Tsarina, Alexandra, as a last hope. And when the boy suffered another bleeding episode, Rasputin entered the room, laid his hand on the child, whispered prayers, and by morning, the bleeding had stopped. Coincidence? Possibly. Faith? Certainly. But to Alexandra, it was a miracle. Rasputin had saved her son. That single act, a moment of perceived divine generosity, changed everything. He had offered a gift no one else could, and with that one gesture, he disarmed the most powerful woman in Russia. She invited him back, again and again. He became her confidant, her advisor, her friend. She believed he was holy, honest, a messenger from God, and Rasputin leaned into the illusion, just enough. He was never too eager. He spoke plainly. He confessed his sins. He admitted he was unworthy. That was the brilliance. By revealing his flaws, his drunkenness, his carnality, his doubt, he made his honesty seem real. Why would a liar admit so much darkness? And so the lie became truth. But Rasputin didn't just manipulate the Tsarina. He used his growing influence to position allies, remove enemies, and wield imperial power from behind the curtain. He recommended ministers, dismissed generals, whispered into the Tsarina's ear while the empire burned outside. He gave advice that seemed selfless, offered prayers that felt sacred, and all the while, His grip on the Romanovs tightened, and the people began to notice. Rumors spread like fire that the Tsarina was under a spell, that Rasputin controlled the throne, that Russia was ruled not by the Tsar, but by a madman from the countryside. Still, Alexandra defended him fiercely, because in her mind, he was the only one who had ever been truly honest with her, the only one who gave without asking for anything in return. But Rasputin had already taken everything. The purest poison is poured with the gentlest hand. By 1916, even the nobility, desperate and humiliated, plotted his murder. They poisoned him, shot him, drowned him. And only then did the spell begin to break. But it was too late. Within a year, the Romanov dynasty fell. Russia collapsed into revolution. The Tsar, the Tsarina, the children, all gone. And Rasputin? He left no army, no palace, no official rank, only a legacy that a single man, wielding nothing but illusion, timing, and a whisper of the divine, had destroyed an empire. Rasputin wasn't a genius tactician. He wasn't noble. He wasn't even educated. But he understood Law 12 intuitively. He gave what no one else could, the illusion of truth. He confessed what no one else dared, the sins of a holy man. He offered the kind of honesty that makes people fall to their knees and never see the knife. And when the kingdom collapsed, they blamed the devil. But he only gave them what they asked for. Let us now reflect on what this law truly reveals, not just about others, but about ourselves. You've now seen how this law works, in the streets of Paris, in the halls of Prussia, in the cathedrals of the Russian Empire. But Law 12 is not a relic. It is not buried with con men, chancellors, or monks. It's alive, all around us. It lives in the manager who gives you a raise just before restructuring your job. It lives in the lover who confesses a childhood wound, right before making you feel guilty for leaving. It lives in the influencer who opens up in public, while selling you something on the side. Because selective honesty works, and generosity, when calculated, is one of the most intoxicating manipulations there is. Give them something they want, and they'll ignore what you're taking. Modern political strategist. Why does this work? Because we crave sincerity. We crave moments that feel unscripted, raw. In a world full of lies, honesty is oxygen. And those who master this law know how to drip feed that oxygen until you depend on them for breath. Selective honesty is not about truth. It's about timing. One confession, one moment of vulnerability, shown at just the right moment, can become the foundation for decades of control. The mind stops asking questions when it believes it's already received the answer. So, what can you do? Watch the timing. If someone tells you a painful truth, ask yourself why now. Did they need to gain something? Win sympathy? Reset your suspicion? Beware the isolated act. One gesture, one sacrifice, one moment of generosity does not prove character. It proves strategy. Refuse the hook. Gifts come with invisible strings, and even kindness, when timed perfectly, can be a form of seduction. Trust slowly, especially when someone appears too perfect, too self-aware, or too honest. Authentic people don't need you to trust them immediately. Manipulators do. Ask yourself, is this confession a tactic or a truth? Is this gift an offering or a leash? Is this relationship built on reality or on well-timed illusions? Because if they've disarmed you, they're not done. They're just getting started. And now we reach the final mask, The moment where power smiles and asks you to thank it. So many imagine power as loud, as brutal, as obvious. But the truth, real power, does not shout. It whispers, it embraces, it makes you laugh, nod, relax, just before it reaches for your soul. Selective honesty is the most dangerous form of deception because it doesn't feel like a lie. It feels like relief. It feels like finally hearing something real in a world of noise. It feels like someone sees you, like you matter, and that is how it hooks you. A drop of sincerity can make a poison taste like wine. The manipulator smiles. They cry with you. They share your pain. They show you their scars, but not the ones they've inflicted. They offer you truth, but only the parts that serve their plan. They give you gifts and call it love, and you never see the moment your will becomes theirs. In the end, Law 12 is not just a warning about others. It's a mirror that asks, when have you used your own vulnerability to influence someone? When have you given to get something back? When have you worn honesty like a crown to cover the dagger beneath? We are all capable of it, and that is why this law is so dangerous. Because even those who think themselves virtuous use it, especially them. The wolf does not always wear sheep's clothing. Sometimes it wears your smile. So guard yourself, but more importantly, examine yourself. Power is not just what others do to you. It is what you do when you believe the moment calls for something real. Like, subscribe, comment, or don't. You are the master of your own life. But remember this, the most dangerous mask is the one you forget you're wearing.